you basically covered it. But the biggest thing that bothers me is everybody's always talking about the upside, and I believe the same thing. I mean, it's very good to hear you talk about it. But it's always why I feel like I'm being pitched all the time. And I feel like there should be a group out there that also talks about these are the risks, so that you understand, let's not ignore them, let's deal with them, let's fix them, so that we make this even more inclusive and more able to be used within the space with people trying to do good things. Does that make sense? I was asking about the risks from your point of view.
So if you want a list of the risks, there's a 1% black swan, unknown risk that no rational person could discount because we can't know the unknown. So it's a new thing, 12 years old. So there is the black swan risk. Take that into account. I think it's highly likely you're going to see regulatory FUD every quarter for the next 10 years. Oh, I heard this country was, the Venezuelans are going to ban it. The Chinese did this. The Russians did that. They might tax it differently. You're going to hear that going on. And you're going to get other asset class risk and FUD. The people that are invested in gold are threatened. People that are invested in other cryptos are threatened. People that are invested in what happens, when this thing gets to $10 trillion, it's going to be more threatening. When it gets to 20 trillion, it'll be more threatening. When it gets to 50 trillion, it'll be more threatening. It should logically, reasonably demonetize all the bond indexes, all the stock indexes, all the cash, and all the gold. And if it demonetizes all those things, then you're going to get FUD and political pushback. Maybe more than FUD, right? It's like if I felt like if I owned Vanguard 500 mutual fund and I had $1 trillion in it, and all that money was flowing from my Vanguard fund into a Bitcoin fund, maybe I'm going to push back in some regulatory jurisdiction. I think you should expect that to happen. I think that the good news here is it'll probably get stronger only as the asset class gets bigger by an order of magnitude. So, by the way, I've been worrying. I fall in the category of a guy that when Amazon stock was like $800 and Jeff Bezos was at war with Donald Trump, I was worried. Oh my God, Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post, is at war with Donald Trump. Is it time to sell Amazon? You know how that story ended up, right? I mean, Amazon's at 3,200 and Jeff Bezos was at war with Donald Trump and Washington Post was at war with Donald Trump. And it would have been a big mistake. By the way, last I checked, Jack Dorsey was at war with the President of the United States. So we know how that turned out. And so, there's going to be regulatory FUD and pushback and volatility. And the more successful it is, the more pushback there will be. And you can't discount the fact that there could be a black swan. And I can't tell you what it is because I don't know. But here's what I can tell you. Take your portfolio and divide it into 10 pieces. And then try to invest in 10 different things that all could go to zero or could go up by a factor of 10. I've got one thing, but by the way, 10 years ago, my portfolio would be Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Google, maybe Microsoft, Twitter, cool things. You want to go crazy, try something else. But I could have given you a list of 5, 10 things. PayPal, Square, things that could go up by a factor of 10 that could be cut in half. That's generally my criteria. Will it be cut in half? Will it go by a factor of 10? Buy something that's more than $100 billion or more, in market cap. It's got 100 million users and it's not done yet. Now, fast forward to 2021. I got Bitcoin. That could go up by a factor of 10 or a factor of 100. I can see Bitcoin going to 1 million. I can see it going to 5 million. Because if it simply replaces all the indexes as a monetary index, money, why shouldn't it go to 100 trillion in market cap or something? So I got that, and and it can go to zero, but I don't think it's going to zero. I think there's a 1% chance of a black swan. I think it's going up or it's chopping around. Do I think Apple, Amazon, Facebook, or Google are going to go up by a factor of 10 from this point? Not really. I think they're plus 20%, minus 20%, plus 100. Maybe they'll double. Maybe they'll triple. You make a list of everything you can invest in that could go up by a factor of 10 or 20 or 30, a screaming winner. You can only lose $1. You can make $100. Maybe you've got some other things, but here's the reason why I think it's a simpler environment today. If the Fed and the EU Central Bank were inflating the money supply 2% a year, the cost of capital is 2%. Any company growing more than 2% might create value. When the cost of capital goes to 5%, you need a company growing 15, 20% to create value. And that was the situation for a decade. The cost of capital was 5 or 6% in the US and Europe. When the cost of capital goes to 15%, if they're going to print 15% more broad money supply, if the reserve ratio at a bank is 0, that means every bank can issue infinite loans with no reserves. Thinking about this, every bank can issue infinite money, no reserve. Fractional banking is printing money. The central bank is printing money. Third world developing countries are printing more money. It's the most loose monetary environment in the last, I don't know, in our lifetime maybe? Maybe in our lifetime. I can't remember a time when there was more money, more deficits, more money being printed. You own a bank with $1 and you issue $20 billion of loans. Think about it. You printed $20 billion in cash. We're in an environment where it looks like for the next 5 years, the money supply is going to expand by 15%. That means assets are going to go up by 15% if they're scarce. That means you have to buy things that are going to go up faster than that. And that means that the hurdle rate just got 3x higher. And not only is the hurdle getting 3x higher, but Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google just had a meteoric run for a decade when it was obvious they were going to have a good run. They're going to have to invent something really cool to go up by another factor of 10. And might they do it? They might. I guess I would say that if you've got 10 things, divide your money 10 ways and bet on the 10 things. If you've got one thing or two things, divide it 2 ways, right? You could do a thing where you invest 95% of your money in conventional assets and 5% in Bitcoin, and then if Bitcoin goes up by a factor of 10, you'll have still a decent return, but then you'll be wondering why isn't it I'm not a billionaire right now? Because you could have been a billionaire. You put 10 million in and you get 100x return, you'll make $1 billion. So you'll be kicking yourself if you didn't do that. Everybody's got to make their own decision. In my life, I never seen something that was such a screaming signal. You've got a $200 to $300 trillion addressable market. You've got a problem. Money is not sound. You've got engineered thermodynamically sound money. You've got a dominant network. Everybody's decided it's a network. It's exploding. The signal that it's exploding is it's growing 200% a year every year for 12 years running. That's the signal. If you wait 30 years, your life is over. How many years are you going to wait before you actually get on that train? I mean, 15, 20, 25, 30 is done, right? I mean, 30 is a career. So I would say that it was highly complicated, risky, and uncertain if you go back a couple of years. It got to be a much easier trade in March of 2020. And every month since March of 2020, it's been de-risks exponentially, and then the need is exploding.